What if I told you that one of the most beloved and legendary hosts in television history, Johnny Carson, the king of late-night TV, had a list of guests he absolutely couldn't stand? That behind his charming smile, his perfect comedic timing, and that calm voice that captivated millions every night, there were moments of pure tension, frustration, and even disgust towards certain celebrities sitting across from him on The Tonight Show. Stay tuned, because in this video, we're uncovering the shocking truth behind the scenes, the arguments, the cold silences, and the unforgettable moments that Johnny Carson wished had never aired. But before we dive into this list of guests that pushed Carson's patience to the limit, do me a quick favor. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It may sound small, but your support tells YouTube that you enjoy content like this, and it helps this channel reach more people who love discovering the real stories behind Hollywood's most iconic moments. Every subscription and comment truly makes a difference in helping us bring you even deeper and more exclusive stories from television's golden age. Now, let's get back to Johnny Carson, because the truth behind his relationships with certain guests might just change the way you see him forever. From arrogant actors who refused to play along with his humor, to controversial politicians who made him lose his cool on live TV, to famous musicians who crossed the line with shocking behavior, Carson dealt with them all. And while he was a master of hiding his true emotions under that legendary smirk, those who worked behind the scenes knew exactly when Johnny's patience had reached its breaking point. Some of these guests left him so furious that he swore never to invite them back again. Others embarrassed him on air in ways that fans still talk about decades later. You'll hear about feuds that started with a simple joke and turned into cold wars, awkward interviews that nearly went off the rails, and moments so tense that producers had to step in. The truth is, not everyone could handle Carson's wit, and Carson himself didn't have the tolerance for everyone's ego. And trust me, the number one name on this list will leave you completely stunned. So, make sure you watch until the very end, because the final revelation will completely change the way you remember Johnny Carson and his legacy. Drop a comment below and tell me which part shocked you the most, because some of these behind-the-scenes stories are so unbelievable, you'll have a hard time imagining they actually happened on live television. Are you ready? Let's get started with the guests Johnny Carson simply couldn't stand. First, let's meet Johnny Carson. Johnny Carson, the man who defined late-night television and became an enduring symbol of charm, wit, and quiet authority, lived a life far more complex than the smooth image he projected on screen. Born on October 23, 1925, in Corning, Iowa, he developed an early love for magic and performing, hinting at the future king of late-night TV he would become. After serving in the Navy during World War II, Carson turned to radio and television, eventually landing his big break in 1962 as host of The Tonight Show. For the next 30 years, he ruled American television with effortless charisma, legendary monologues, and sharp, unpredictable interviews that kept viewers captivated. But behind the laughter, Carson's personal life was far from perfect. Married 4 times, he struggled with emotional distance and a deep need for privacy. His first marriages to Jody Walcott and Joanne Copeland were filled with tension, while his third wife, Joanna Holland, famously filed for divorce on their 10th anniversary without warning. His final marriage to Alexis Moss brought some peace, yet Carson remained guarded. Friends described him as kind but withdrawn, a man who preferred solitude to social life. He once admitted, "I don't like to get too close to people. You lose a little of yourself every time you do." Despite his composed exterior, Carson had a fierce temper when disrespected. Behind the scenes, he could instantly turn cold toward anyone who crossed him. His colleagues often said he was a man who never forgot a slight. In 1991, tragedy struck when his son Richard died in a car accident, a loss that devastated him and pushed him further into isolation. After retiring in 1992, Carson largely vanished from the public eye, retreating to his Malibu home, where he spent his days reading, sailing, and occasionally sending jokes to David Letterman. He later admitted that fame had cost him almost everything personal, once saying, "Happiness is your own responsibility." On screen, his smile never faltered, but viewers could sometimes sense when something was off. When a guest rubbed him the wrong way, his tone subtly shifted. Carson's tolerance for arrogance or disrespect was limited, and over the years, several celebrities found themselves quietly banned from his stage. Which brings us to the heart of this story, the guests Johnny Carson simply couldn't stand. The ones who clashed with his humor, challenged his patience, or left him fuming behind that iconic desk. From comedians who stole his spotlight to stars who disrespected him on live TV, these encounters became legendary. Here are 6 of the most unforgettable guests Johnny Carson reportedly couldn't stand. 6. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford's appearance on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson is still remembered as one of the most difficult and uncomfortable guest moments in the show's history. By the time she sat across from Johnny, Crawford was already a Hollywood legend, the glamorous star of Mildred Pierce, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, and dozens of other classic films. She represented the golden age of cinema, but with that legacy came an ego and a reputation that were larger than life. When Johnny Carson welcomed her onto his stage, he expected sophistication and wit, maybe a few elegant stories from her long career. What he got instead was one of the most challenging interviews of his life. From the moment she arrived at NBC studios, Joan Crawford made it clear that things had to be done her way. She was known for being meticulous about her image, the lighting, the camera angles, even the temperature of the studio. Everything had to be perfect. Before the taping began, she reportedly demanded extra lighting to make her look younger on camera and instructed the crew to avoid close-up shots that might reveal her age. Carson, who preferred a relaxed, natural flow on his show, found her behavior overly demanding and stiff. The tension began before the cameras even rolled, and when the interview finally started, that unease was obvious to everyone watching. Crawford spoke slowly, carefully choosing every word as if reading from a script, and she avoided Carson's attempts at humor. Whenever he asked a personal question or tried to steer the conversation in a lighter direction, she would pull back, giving cold, rehearsed answers. The audience, used to Johnny's easy laughter and quick exchanges, could feel the strain. It wasn't that Crawford was rude, she simply didn't understand Carson's style. She came from an era when interviews were formal, controlled, and completely free of improvisation. But Carson's genius was in making everything seem effortless and real, and that authenticity clashed with her need for perfection. Behind the scenes, producers whispered that Johnny was losing patience. During a commercial break, he reportedly sighed and said, "She's impossible." Crawford, meanwhile, seemed unaware that her old Hollywood diva habits were making everyone around her uncomfortable. She insisted on retakes, corrected staff members, and even reminded the camera operators to focus on her good side. When the show ended, Carson shook her hand politely, but insiders said he told his team never to invite her back. For Johnny, the interview represented everything he disliked: rehearsed answers, lack of spontaneity, and a guest more concerned with image than conversation. For Crawford, it was probably just another appearance to maintain her star presence, but it became infamous for all the wrong reasons. Years later, crew members would recall that evening as one of the few times they saw Carson genuinely irritated during a show. Yet, in a strange way, the clash between Johnny Carson and Joan Crawford symbolized a generational shift, the passing of the torch from the glamorous, tightly controlled Hollywood of the 1940s to the candid, conversational entertainment of the television era. Crawford was the embodiment of the old world, while Carson represented the new, and when those two collided, the result was inevitable tension. Still, even in that uncomfortable encounter, both remained true to who they were. Carson, the smooth professional who could handle anything with composure, and Crawford, the perfectionist star who demanded nothing less than control. Their meeting was brief, but it perfectly captured the contrast between two entertainment legends, one clinging to the past, and the other shaping the future. 5. Don Rickles. Don Rickles was one of the few people in Hollywood who could make Johnny Carson laugh uncontrollably one moment and grind his teeth in frustration the next. Known as Mr. Warmth, Rickles built his career on insult comedy, a style that depended on teasing, mocking, and roasting everyone around him, from celebrities to fans. He and Johnny shared a long, complicated friendship that played out in front of millions of viewers over the years. When Rickles appeared on The Tonight Show, audiences knew they were in for chaos. He'd walk out, toss a few jabs at Johnny's hair, his suit, or his love life, and within seconds, Carson would be laughing, even as he tried to keep the show under control. There was genuine affection between them, but also an undercurrent of tension because Rickles often had no filter, and Johnny, despite his easygoing persona, was a man who valued precision and respect. The chemistry between the two worked beautifully on screen most of the time. Carson admired Rickles' fearlessness, his timing, and his ability to make even the most powerful guests laugh at themselves. But every so often, Rickles would cross the invisible line that separated good-natured teasing from genuine discomfort. He would interrupt Johnny's monologue, toss out jokes about his personal life, or make remarks that hit a bit too close to home. When that happened, Johnny's smile would tighten, his eyes would flicker, subtle signs that he was no longer amused. Yet, because both were professionals, they played it off for the audience, maintaining the illusion of endless camaraderie. One of the most famous incidents between them happened off-air and has become television legend. During an episode that Carson wasn't hosting when Rickles was filling in as a guest, Don accidentally broke Carson's prized cigarette box that sat on his desk. The next night, when Johnny returned, he found the broken box and immediately decided to confront Rickles live on air. In a moment of spontaneous brilliance, Carson marched right into the studio next door, where Rickles was filming his own show. CPO Sharkey barged onto the set and demanded an explanation in front of a roaring audience. Rickles, caught completely off guard, tried to joke his way out of it, but Johnny's mix of mock anger and amusement made the scene unforgettable. It became one of the most replayed moments in late-night history, a genuine display of their love-hate dynamic. Beneath the laughter, though, Rickles' humor sometimes genuinely annoyed Carson. Johnny, who carefully controlled the flow of his show, didn't always appreciate having it hijacked by Rickles' unpredictable energy. But deep down, he respected Don for being authentic and never holding back. In truth, their relationship mirrored that of brothers' constant teasing, occasional irritation, but an unspoken bond of loyalty and admiration. After Carson retired, Rickles spoke warmly about him in interviews, calling him a class act and saying that no one could ever replace him. And despite their occasional clashes, Johnny always had a soft spot for Don. He understood that behind the insults and chaos, Rickles was one of the few people who could make him genuinely laugh, not as a host, not as a performer, but as a man. Their friendship, full of sarcasm, mutual respect, and the occasional friction, stood as proof that even when two comedic giants have completely different styles, the love of laughter can bridge the gap. Rickles may have driven Carson crazy at times, but he also reminded him why comedy mattered, because at its heart, it connected people, even through chaos and conflict. 4. Cher. Cher's encounter with Johnny Carson remains one of the most memorable and controversial moments in The Tonight Show's long history, not because of a scandal or a dramatic outburst, but because of a few simple words that left one of television's most composed hosts visibly unsettled. At the time, Cher was already a household name, known for her fearless personality, quick wit, and glamorous presence. She had transitioned from her musical success with Sonny Bono to becoming a solo star, and with that came a reputation for speaking her mind without hesitation. When she appeared on The Tonight Show in the early 1970s, the chemistry between her and Carson started off lighthearted. She arrived looking stunning and confident, and the audience greeted her with warm applause. Johnny, always the smooth host, opened with his usual charm, complimenting her career and style. But Cher wasn't the type to play it safe. She was witty, direct, and unafraid to tease even someone as iconic as Johnny Carson. In one spontaneous moment, she joked that she had only come on the show because her manager told her she had to, and then, with a mischievous smile, she called Carson a bit boring. The audience laughed, thinking it was harmless banter, but the atmosphere in the studio shifted slightly. Carson, known for his easygoing demeanor, tried to brush it off with a smile, but those who knew him well could see that the comment had struck a nerve. Johnny took great pride in his ability to keep guests comfortable and entertained. Being called boring, especially on his own stage, was something his ego didn't easily tolerate. For Carson, who carefully controlled his image and tone, Cher's joke felt more like a public insult than playful teasing. Although the rest of the interview continued professionally, there was a noticeable stiffness in his responses. When the cameras stopped rolling, insiders said Johnny was clearly irritated. He wasn't used to guests challenging him in that way, especially not a young pop star. Cher, however, didn't seem to regret her words. She later admitted in interviews that she wasn't trying to be mean, just honest and funny in her own style. But the damage was done. Carson reportedly vowed never to have her back on the show again. That one remark became legendary in television lore, a reminder that Johnny, despite his composed exterior, had a sensitive side when it came to respect and reputation. For Cher, the moment only reinforced her image as a fearless woman who spoke her mind, no matter who was sitting across from her. She would go on to break countless barriers in music, film, and television, while Carson continued his reign as the king of late night. Yet, that brief, awkward exchange between the two remains an iconic example of how even the most charming host could be caught off guard by someone who refused to play by the rules. Over the years, fans have debated whether Cher was wrong or simply ahead of her time, a strong woman in an era when such bluntness was often misunderstood. In hindsight, it's almost poetic. Two legends, both icons of their fields, meeting on live television and clashing, not out of malice, but out of sheer authenticity. For Johnny Carson, Cher became one of those guests who reminded him that not every moment could be controlled, and for Cher, It was just another instance of her speaking her truth, unfiltered and unforgettable. 3. Wayne Newton. Wayne Newton's feud with Johnny Carson is one of the most talked about and surprising stories in late-night television history, because it exposed a rare side of Carson that audiences almost never saw genuine anger. Wayne Newton, known as Mr. Las Vegas, was a beloved singer and entertainer, famous for his smooth voice, polished style, and charming presence. For years, he had a friendly relationship with Carson and appeared several times on The Tonight Show. But as Newton's fame grew, so did rumors about his personal life, his finances, and his rumored connections in the entertainment business, and unfortunately, Carson found those rumors to be irresistible material for his monologues. What started as playful teasing slowly turned into something much deeper and more personal. Carson began making jokes on air implying that Newton was overly feminine and hinting at his sexuality, which, at the time, was a sensitive and potentially career-damaging topic. In the 1970s and 1980s, public image was everything, and these jokes began to bother Newton deeply. He felt humiliated, not just as a performer, but as a man. For him, it wasn't humor anymore, it was disrespect. He saw Carson's jokes as cruel and unfair, especially because he believed he had done nothing to deserve them. Behind the scenes, Newton tried to remain professional, but the tension kept building. Finally, in the early 1980s, Wayne Newton decided he had enough. During a visit to NBC studios, he reportedly marched straight to Carson's office, slammed the door behind him, and confronted him face to face. According to people who witnessed the encounter, Newton told Carson in no uncertain terms that if the jokes didn't stop, there would be serious consequences. The usually calm and composed Carson was caught off guard. No one ever spoke to him like that. Newton was furious, his voice shaking as he accused Johnny of damaging his reputation and using him as an easy target. The confrontation became legendary in Hollywood circles, and although the details have been retold in different ways, everyone agrees that Carson never joked about Wayne Newton again. From that day forward, their relationship was permanently broken. Carson refused to invite him back on The Tonight Show, and Newton never spoke kindly of Carson again. Years later, in interviews, Newton admitted that he regretted how far things had gone but maintained that he had to stand up for himself. "When someone keeps trying to tear you down on national television," he once said, "you either fight back or you let them destroy you." He also revealed that what hurt him most wasn't just the jokes, it was that they came from someone he once respected. For Johnny, who prided himself on his humor being clever rather than cruel, this incident became one of the few times his comedy truly backfired. It showed that even the most polished entertainers could cross a line without realizing it. As the years went by, both men continued their careers successfully, Carson as the eternal face of The Tonight Show, and Newton as the king of Las Vegas, but their paths never crossed again. Their feud became a reminder of how quickly respect can turn into resentment when words cut too deeply. And for Carson, who was known for controlling every moment of his show with charm and composure, Wayne Newton was one of the few guests who ever managed to break that calm exterior and show the man behind the mask. 2. Joan Rivers. Joan Rivers was once one of Johnny Carson's favorite guests. Quick-witted, fearless, and hilariously unpredictable, she was everything Carson admired in a comedian. When she first appeared on The Tonight Show in 1965, Johnny immediately saw her potential. He told her on air, "You're going to be a big star," and he meant it. That single moment launched her career and cemented a professional relationship that would last for years. Carson loved how Joan could match his timing and wasn't afraid to tease him playfully, something few guests dared to do. Their chemistry on screen was electric. She was bold, funny, and spontaneous, and Johnny seemed to genuinely enjoy their banter. But beneath that warm professional bond, there were unspoken tensions that would one day explode into one of the biggest rifts in television history. Joan Rivers had long been considered Johnny's unofficial protégé. She filled in as guest host for The Tonight Show many times, and her appearances always drew strong ratings. Audiences loved her candid, self-deprecating humor and her willingness to talk about taboo topics. However, Joan always felt that NBC never truly valued her the same way they did male comedians. Behind the scenes, she worried that her future was uncertain. So, when the Fox network offered her the chance to host her own late-night talk show in 1986, it felt like the opportunity of a lifetime finally, her own stage, her own name above the title. But here's where everything went wrong. Instead of telling Johnny personally about the new job, she kept it quiet until the announcement went public. When Carson found out from the press that his longtime friend and protégé was starting a competing show in the same time slot, he felt deeply betrayed. He saw it not just as a business decision, but as a personal insult. He immediately cut all contact with her and banned her from The Tonight Show permanently. Joan tried to call him multiple times, desperate to explain, but he refused to take her calls. From that day forward, they never spoke again. To Carson, loyalty was everything, and he saw her decision as a sign of disloyalty that he couldn't forgive. The situation became even more painful for Joan when her new show failed within a year. Fox executives pushed her out, and in the midst of that heartbreak, her husband and producer, Edgar Rosenberg, took his own life. It was the darkest period of her life. Joan later said that losing Johnny's friendship hurt as much as losing her career. She idolized him and often credited him for making her who she was. Despite that, Carson never softened. Even after her success returned years later, and she rebuilt her career through stand-up, red carpet hosting, and Fashion Police, she remained banned from The Tonight Show until 2014, long after Carson's death. When Jimmy Fallon finally invited her back, she walked onto that stage with tears in her eyes, saying it felt like coming home again. The tragedy of Joan Rivers and Johnny Carson's relationship is that two brilliant comedic minds who once shared genuine admiration were torn apart by pride, miscommunication, and the unforgiving nature of show business. Their story remains one of the most emotional chapters in television history, a reminder that behind the laughter, even the biggest stars can carry heartbreak that never truly fades. 1. Bob Hope. Bob Hope was one of the biggest names in entertainment long before Johnny Carson became a household figure. Known for his razor-sharp timing, his countless USO tours entertaining troops, and his polished old-school humor, Hope was, for decades, the symbol of American comedy. But when two eras of entertainment met, the tightly scripted tradition of Bob Hope and the spontaneous, improvisational genius of Johnny Carson, sparks inevitably flew. At first, their relationship seemed respectful. Carson, who grew up admiring the comedians of Hope's generation, treated him with courtesy and deference. Bob Hope, after all, had paved the way for many who came after him. But as The Tonight Show evolved under Carson's leadership, the gap between the two men's styles became impossible to ignore. Hope's visits to the show were supposed to be special, nostalgic events, yet behind the scenes they were anything but enjoyable. Hope was notorious for his insistence on control, every joke pre-written, every punchline rehearsed, and every segment planned down to the second. He would show up with cue cards, pre-approved jokes, and zero room for improvisation. This clashed completely with Carson's natural rhythm. Johnny loved to let conversations flow freely, using quick wit and real reactions to make television feel alive. But with Hope, there was no room for that spark. Every time Carson tried to engage him in genuine conversation, Hope would read another joke from his cue cards, ignoring Johnny's attempts to connect. Over time, what began as mild frustration turned into silent resentment. Carson later told a close friend that interviewing Hope was like talking to a statue. He respected what Hope had achieved, but found his rigidity stifling and outdated. The chemistry that worked so effortlessly between Carson and most guests vanished completely when Hope was on stage. The audience could sense it too. The laughter felt forced, the energy artificial. Carson, who prided himself on authenticity and timing, hated that feeling more than anything. There was another side to their tension as well: ego. Both men were legends in their own right, and Hope's habit of treating The Tonight Show as just another promotional stop rubbed Carson the wrong way. Hope would often drop by simply to plug his specials or latest appearances, rarely showing genuine interest in conversation or humor. To Carson, who valued substance and spontaneity, this was almost an insult. By the 1980s, Carson began quietly minimizing Hope's appearances, even when NBC pressured him to keep inviting the comedy veteran. Though he never publicly insulted Hope, those close to the show said that Johnny's frustration was no secret. The truth was, Carson respected Bob Hope's legacy but couldn't stand working with him. Their contrasting personalities, one clinging to the past, the other pushing toward a new era of comedy, made their interactions almost unbearable for Carson. In private moments, Johnny would occasionally reminisce about the old days of television, but when Hope's name came up, he'd usually roll his eyes and change the subject. It wasn't hatred, it was disappointment. Two comedy giants, each a master of their time, simply couldn't find common ground. And for a man like Johnny Carson, who valued chemistry and sincerity above all else, that lack of connection made Bob Hope one of the guests he secretly dreaded most. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you for watching. Now, if this story shocked or fascinated you, Don't leave without subscribing to the channel and smashing that like button. It might seem small, but it makes a huge difference. Every like, comment, and subscription tells YouTube that you enjoy this kind of deep Hollywood storytelling, which helps the video reach more people who love uncovering these hidden truths. Also, drop a comment below and tell us, which guest on Johnny Carson's list surprised you the most? Did you expect number 1? We read every comment and love hearing your opinions and theories. And if you're a fan of classic television legends and the untold stories behind them, make sure you turn on the notification bell, because our next video dives into another shocking Hollywood mystery you won't want to miss. Thanks again for watching, and remember, every star has a secret, and we'll be here to uncover the next one.